Welcome to the Life Leadership Podcast with myself, Leila Singh, all things coaching, career and personal branding. This podcast is for ambitious career professionals like you, wanting to create a life of choice and freedom, to be, do and have more through overcoming limitations, to develop new perspectives and insights, and to redefine your success, be that in work, health, relationships, and so much more. Hi there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to Life with Leila. My name is Leila Singh and I'm a life leadership, career and personal brand coach and mentor. And I work with career professionals, typically in the technology industry, who want to elevate your life, your career, and to create a life of freedom, of choice through overcoming your self-imposed limitations and creating new possibilities by redefining your success in work, health, in relationships, and in so much more. What I call life leadership, all whilst showing up as the best version of yourself. So today's episode, what are we talking about? We are talking about why success is more than simply the right strategy. Right being the right strategy. Because here's the thing, how often do you go seeking the latest strategies, tips, best practices and guidelines to create greater success? Whether that be in your work, your health, your finances, even your relationships. And discover that no matter how well you follow and you implement those strategies, you're simply not where you want to be. And here's the thing, Tony Robbins says, and he is, if you've not come across Tony Robbins before, he's a renowned top life and business strategist. He says success in life is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. Mechanics being the strategies, the best practices, the tips and tools. In other words, what he says is what you do doesn't matter if you aren't in the right mindset. So success in life is 80% psychology and 20% implementation, what you do, the strategy. And psychology is a big part of psychology, or pretty much all of psychology is mindset, is what's going on in the mind, the way that you view the world, the thoughts that you have, the beliefs that you had, all of those good things. That's all about mindset. And one of the reasons, or in fact, two of the reasons I'd like to share with you as to why I thought of this as a topical subject for today is this. Number one, I share a lot of content on social media platforms, whether it's the podcasts, these lives, and written content. And I often get people reaching out to me, particularly on LinkedIn, asking, oh, can we hop on a call and give me some tips around how to move up in my career, to elevate my career? And of course, I mean, all the tips that I can share are tips that I put out there for free on social media across the various platforms, and particularly through YouTube, through the podcast, through these lives. So the tips are out there and I'm more than happy to share them. But here's the thing. We can have all of those tips and strategies and best practices in the world. But the mindset, our mindset, what's going on internally is our potential biggest hindrance to getting to where we want to be. So that's the first reason I wanted to share this with you, because I want you to understand, to be open to that possibility that actually, whether you're in business, you're in a career, and you're looking for strategies to improve aspects of your life, whatever that might be, you know, that yes, there are strategies out there, there's tools, there's techniques, etc., and of course they work, but it's the person who's implementing them that is important. It's where you are coming from, how you are showing up in the world, and that's what I want to delve into a little bit more today. The second reason that this I thought was topical is because, as you may be aware if you follow me on social media, I recently ran a retreat in the Caribbean with my partner on planning and personal growth. And what became quite evident early on in that, during that event, is that some of the delegates who had come primarily to work on their business planning, a strategy, were a little bit resistant to the mindset work and didn't really appreciate or comprehend the relevance and the importance of looking internally, being introspective, and working on our mindset in order to get the results that we want. Ultimately, at the end of that week during the retreat, the feedback and testimonials were that for virtually everyone who was there, they recognized that actually mindset plays a huge part in our success. And it's something that can be very easily overlooked. But again, they got the strategies, they got the tools, they got the techniques, but the mindset piece is the big piece that can really propel us forward. So what am I saying here? What I'm saying is our success, our reality, our results all come from within. So we're looking at 80% of our results come from what we're doing in terms of the work on ourselves, our mindset, and how we show up in the world, because that directly influences the way that we show up. In other words, our thoughts, our beliefs, our language influence how we feel. You know, the filter through which we look at the world, that we interpret, that we assume, presume, judge, make opinion or form opinions, all of that then influences our experience of the world, because we get to choose all of those things. And here's the point with that. Oftentimes, most people are going through life unconsciously. In other words, they're not self-aware. They're not aware of what they're doing, of the thoughts they're having, the beliefs they carry that may no longer be serving them, the language that we use day to day, and how that directly influences the experiences that we create for ourselves, about the choices we make, the judgments we carry, the opinions that we form. All of that will directly influence how we feel and therefore our experience of something. And often, if you stop for a moment and just check in with yourself and think about a time when perhaps you've been critical of somebody or something, whether it's been in your mind or out loud. And oftentimes you can see this in the workplace, where for whatever reason, where there's a team and there's a manager, there's always going to be somebody who is going to criticize or find fault with the manager. It's very rare that you'll get an entire team that really appreciates what a great manager they have. And I'm not suggesting every manager is good either, of course, but there are a lot of good managers out there. And then it's the meaning that we choose to put on how that manager behaves and what they do. And you may have one person who starts to complain, to moan, to criticize, and just always find fault. And then typically you might then get influenced by that, and everyone starts to believe the same and just join the herd, so to speak. And then the experience you're getting is a negative one. You know, we can go to work and we can complain about the strategy, the management, our immediate manager, our team, the people we have to work with. All of those complaints and criticisms and moaning is creating your experience of it being a bad experience. And slowing down to actually, how could I look at this differently? Why is their strategy the strategy it is? You know, let me seek to understand. And then understanding, as an example, why the manager's asking us to do certain things. It's not always, it's not naturally a negative thing, but typical behavior is let's look for the worst rather than the best. And we can do this in every area of our life. You know, most of us will have pretty good health, broadly speaking, but there'll be aspects of it that aren't working well. And we'll focus on all the things that aren't working rather than things that are. Now, I'm not suggesting we shouldn't address the things that aren't working, but if we pick one thing, so for example, I can use the example of my weight. I'm unhappy with my weight, right? But if I take that out of the equation for a second and say, okay, but look at all the things that are really working effectively when it comes to my health. There's a hell of a lot of things that are going well for me. If I look and think, well, actually, I have my eyesight, I have my hearing, my sense of smell and taste. I can move my limbs, I can walk, I can, move around, all of those things, which we overlook and focus on the one thing that we aren't happy with. Like I said, it's not to suggest that we shouldn't work to improve or change something, or to get better. So in my case, I'm working to do the things to lose the weight that I'm not happy with. But it's also recognizing the good. It's what we choose to focus on. So understanding the thoughts that we have about ourselves, about other people, about situations, the beliefs that we carry, the way that we speak about things, can all influence how we feel, our emotions. And those emotions directly influence the way that we behave, our actions, and ultimately then our results, our experiences, and our levels of success. So introspection, working on ourselves, looking at our mindset is really, really important. And yes, I'm not going to lie, it is very uncomfortable going there for most people because it's not something we're used to doing. It's a little bit like meditation or just sitting in silence for 5 minutes. A lot of people will avoid it. Why? Because they're not comfortable with their own thoughts and what's going to come up in that moment. Therefore, they'll simply avoid it. And this is where we get to really embrace this and let go of that resistance. Because it is resistance we have, and it's understanding where that resistance is coming from. What are we scared of? And what is the cost to us? What is the cost to you of not going there, of going inside and really exploring ourselves, our beliefs, the thoughts that we have, our lens of the world that we're looking through, and how that is potentially hindering us, holding us back. Because once we recognize that there is a cost to that, then we get to choose something differently. And that's where we then get to let go of that resistance, albeit it can be difficult. I'm not saying this is easy. And begin to look at ourselves and to start being with our thoughts and recognizing the thoughts that we have, the outlook that we have on the world, and how it's not serving us, how it is potentially holding us back. And by doing this, so by recognizing, by embracing, and by understanding, in other words, updating our internal programming, a little bit like your phone, your iPhone, or that you might be using, or your PC, your laptop. How often do you run the upgrades? You upgrade the programming because it becomes out of date. It's no longer enabling you to do what you want to do, so you have to keep it up to date. And it's very similar with our mindset. We have to look at reprogramming, updating it, keeping it current so that it's working at its most effective for us to be able to create the success that we want. And what do I mean by that? When I talk about the reprogramming, I'm talking about things like having new perspectives, new points of view. So maybe shifting our outlook on the world, or on our career, on the people around us, whatever that might be, on ourselves even. Experiencing new insights and realizations. And these are incredibly powerful because we get to understand what is no longer serving us, what is not helping us to move forward and to get to where we want to be, and is in fact hindering us. It's holding us back. And by understanding that, then we get to create those shifts internally. And those internal shifts have a direct impact on every area of our life. So whether you're not where you want to be in work, in your health, in your finances, in your relationships, and so much more. Yes, there are things we can do, like the actual to-do strategies, the tips, the guidances, the guidelines, best practice, all of those things that we can do. So the kind of external things we can go and do. But ultimately, people have been doing that over and over and over for years and still not getting what they want. Why? Because we're not doing the internal work. And that's why this is so, so important. Remember, Tony Robbins said, success is 80% psychology, 20% activity. So we get to elevate our life in every area, one step at a time, and propel ourselves forward. What that means is we then get to create new possibilities, new opportunities, and new experiences. And what I mean by possibilities are things that perhaps we've never even considered, things that are so out of our scope, of our awareness, for whatever reason. And often it's because we limit ourselves, we limit the beliefs about ourselves and what we are capable of and what we can accomplish. And therefore, we don't even give it a go. And that is where, when I talk about possibilities, it's about creating possibilities to experience and to live the life that you love beyond what you'd even perceived possible. Let me know if you've done that work on yourself, if you've done some work on your mindset and internal growth. Because by creating new possibilities, that's when we get to realize what we're truly capable of. We get to recognize our potential. We get to maybe create a life that we never thought possible. And you might be thinking, well, it's great for me to sit here and say all of these things, but what's the reality of that? And here's the thing. I like to ensure that I have evidence to back it up, to walk the talk, and to lead by example. And a couple of examples I can share with you about creating new possibilities. So I embarked on my career a long time ago, probably about 30-ish years ago, a little under 30 years ago. And I started out as an accountant. So I trained to qualify as an accountant and worked in finance for a number of years. Now, for a number of reasons, which I won't delve into today, I then decided I wanted to step away from that. And I moved into recruitment, so a sales role, financial recruitment consultant, for a number of reasons. And one of the biggest motivators for me doing that, or the drivers for me doing that, was the fact that in my role in finance, I was the church mouse. I lacked confidence. I lacked self-esteem. I believed that everybody around me was better than me. So I had a big inferiority complex. I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I'd come in, I'd keep my head down, I'd work really hard. And I was getting the results, but I wasn't getting the recognition and the promotions because nobody knew who I was and what I was about, what value I brought. And I recognized that I needed to overcome this. And by really stepping out of my comfort zone and pushing myself and challenging myself to do something completely different. And yes, it was taking a risk. It was taking a 50% pay cut. It was trying something completely new, where I was beginning kind of at the bottom. I did it. And I did recruitment. I worked in recruitment for a couple of years. And I will always say, till today, it was the best decision I ever made. Because by stepping out of my comfort zone, by challenging myself and doing something so different, it had me realize, to a degree, what I'm capable of, that I'm capable of so much more than I realize. And that's where I learned that taking risks is all about creating growth for yourself, learning and growing. And yes, what if it doesn't work? Of course, that question's always there. But the other question to ask, and a different perspective, a different outlook, is, well, what if it does? What if it does work? Then what is possible? And it's not about showing anyone else. It's about yourself first and foremost. And for me, that enabled me to realize that anything is possible. We get to create whatever we want by putting our mind to it, whether we need to upskill, work, educate ourselves. But we can do whatever we want. Anything is possible. That just becomes down to a choice and a decision that we make of how much we're invested in that to make that difference for ourselves. So that's one example. Another example is now, leaving a 25-year, very successful corporate career, well-paid job, to again, kind of start again by setting up my own business, my own coaching practice. And I've been doing that full time now for 4 years this month. And that's a risk. That's stepping out of my comfort zone. It's a very different approach, a very different mindset of having your own business versus being an employee. And there's pros and cons to both sides, by the way. And I have no regrets of making that decision. And again, it's stretched me, it's challenged me, it's enabled me to grow and to realize what I'm capable of. And there's other things that I've done. You know, I attended, before I did a lot of the deeper work with Tony Robbins, I had attended initially UPW, which is an event he runs. And I think now it's all online, but he used to run the in-person event every year here in London at the Excel. And I attended it, I think it was in 2015. And part of that experience is to walk over hot coals. And although I chose to attend the event, I, in my mind, have made a decision I would not be participating in that. It's just not going to happen. But hey, guess what? I ended up in front. I went to the watch and see what other people were doing and found myself in front of the fire. And I walked across. And it was great. It was, for me, a massive personal accomplishment because I didn't believe I could do it without getting burnt. Subsequent to that, when I was doing my NLP, my neuro-linguistic practitioner master training, I had the opportunity to walk across broken glass. And again, I said, I've done the hot coals, but there's no way I'm walking across broken glass. Why? Because I might cut myself. It just looks too dangerous. I'm too scared. Guess what? I was the last person in the group to do it. I was crying when I did because I was that scared. And I did it. And I didn't have a scratch. And again, it reinforced to me my belief that anything is possible. The power is in the mind. The power is in what we believe we can do. The power isn't in the strategy and the techniques and the how-tos. The power is on working internally. Public speaking. If you'd see me 10 years ago, I was one of those, like most people in organizations, who absolutely avoid, detest, hate it, and are very uncomfortable. And yet now I will happily volunteer to deliver a keynote, to go speak for an organization, for an event. It's okay, because I overcame that fear. My point of sharing all of this is to show that we get to create the life that we want by exploring what is possible, which is potentially outside of what we believed is possible for ourselves, of what the potential really is for us. And for those of you who follow me or know me, you will have seen my recent post last week about overcoming my fear of being in the ocean, and better yet, scuba diving, something I never ever dreamt I would do. And again, I cried, I was scared, and I did it. And I'm here to tell the tale. So what is it that you can be doing to work on your mindset, your outlook on your life, your beliefs about you and your potential? How are you limiting yourself? What is it you can do to overcome that so you can actually create and achieve so much more? Because we're not here on this planet to live a life of mediocre. I truly believe we're here to live a life of extraordinary and to create an impact in our lives and to have the best experiences for ourselves. So let me ask you this. Where in your life are you struggling right now? Where are you feeling dissatisfied, frustrated, unhappy, or maybe unfulfilled? Are you blaming lack of time, lack of energy, lack of resources? So all the things that are kind of external to the mindset. Are you focusing on what isn't working or what could potentially go wrong? And before you go searching for the next shiny new strategy or technique, I invite you to slow down and to stop. Because despite your good intentions, we all have blind spots. We all get in our own way, and we don't know what we don't know. In other words, we don't know what is possible for us. We set limitations and beliefs on ourselves, but what we think is possible. And my question to you is to really slow down to that. And I want to ask you, what work are you going to do on your inner self to create a healthier outlook, to harness your inner game that is so much more powerful than you realize, and to rewrite your story? This isn't about delving into all the past experiences, trauma and challenge, and just revisiting and revisiting. This is about understanding and appreciating that our past has happened, but actually we're here today. What can we create today to create a better future for ourselves? And ultimately, by rewriting your story and cultivating that winning mindset, anything truly is possible. We get to live an extraordinary life. So my question today is, where in your life are you struggling right now? And what is it you're going to do to overcome that, to create that change in your life? If you're still struggling, watch this space, because I'm in the midst of creating something very exciting for the new year. So stay connected. If you're not connected to me, then please do reach out and connect. Watch this space for what is coming up in the new year. And if you can't wait for the new year and you want to know what is possible for you now, then reach out to me and let's have a conversation. I do hope you've taken some value away from today's live, and thank you as always for joining me today. And until next time, remember to elevate your performance, to maximize your potential, and to create new possibilities by showing up as the best version of you. Take care, have a great rest of the week, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already done so. And if you enjoyed and gained value from today's episode, then do please leave a review telling us your key learnings and what you enjoyed the most. And do please share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can spread the word on life leadership, creating a life of choice, freedom, and new possibilities. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn, and if you would like to learn more about how we can work together, either DM me on LinkedIn or email me. All details and resources can be found in the show notes.